So let's talk about this bill that we just passed today. We finally got the COVID relief bill passed. It's going to go to Biden's desk to be signed on Friday. So they're all touting this bill like it's the brand new Deal. This is a massive handout to workers' rights. It's going to help Americans get out of poverty. It's going to, my favorite claim thus far, it's going to halve the child poverty rate. We're going to talk about that in depth in a second. So they're acting like this is the New Deal, but it's not. This to me is like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping, festering, bloody gunshot wound because it doesn't provide any structural change whatsoever. So in order to get into the nuts and bolts of that, I actually want to go back and talk about the original bill that was passed by the House before it went to the Senate. This is important because the Senate is where we lost some important things like the $15 minimum wage. So the original bill had the unemployment insurance payouts were going to be $400 and not the $300 that they have now agreed to. So they took that down from $400 to $300. And I think it's also important to note that a year ago, under the Trump administration and under the GOP-controlled Senate and Congress, the payments were $600. They were able to pass that. So what has happened here? We now have control of both the White House and both chambers of Congress, and they cut it from $400 to $300. How does this make sense? It should be higher. You promised the American people something more, right? You know, and obviously it also included a federal wage increase of $15 an hour. Now we can get into the arguments of how the GOP didn't support this bill today at all, not a single one of them. That is true. I do think that there is a tension that exists between the traditional Republican Party and the Trump populism that we've seen the last 4 years. There is a tension there, but that's sort of tangential to what the point I'm making is. The Democrats are in charge. They promise structural change. They're touting this bill as a New Deal, massive thing, and it's just simply not that. All right, so the bill went to the Senate, and we lost the $15 minimum wage, and this to me is a massive, massive travesty. So the party in power across the board, and they couldn't get this done. In the very least, Biden should have been able to pick up the phone and convince the Delaware senators to support his bill. He's from Delaware. This is his home state. You're going to tell me that he could not convince Coons and Carper to support this $15 minimum wage? You know, they're saying one of the arguments that Carper made was that he wants something to be indexed to inflation. But this is also bullshit, and I'll tell you why. It's bullshit because if minimum wage had been indexed to inflation this entire time, we'd be looking at an inflation rate of our wage of like $22 to $25 an hour. So that horse left the stable, pardon my French. This is a ridiculous comeback. It hasn't been in the past, and to say that's what we need to do now to get this passed is ridiculous. We are so far down the income inequality rabbit hole that this is, even 15 is not going to do it, right? You know, the other thing would be Joe Manchin saying that he could or would support an $11 minimum wage. Now, is $11 enough? No, we already said 15 is not enough. It should be, you know, $25 to $30 in my opinion. But in the very least, they could have taken that compromise and introduced some sort of structural change. Why didn't they? While they were playing, you know, this back and forth game with the conservative Democrats, why didn't they say to Joe Manchin, Carper Coons, the rest of them, all right, you won't agree to the 15. Will you agree to 11? Let's at least do that. Instead, they abandoned the entire project. This is inconceivable to me. Then they went on and used the parliamentarian as an excuse. You know, we've talked about that. The parliamentarian is an advisory role. They have zero power. This is not a real reason to not do anything. At the very least, Harris could have put the kibbutz on that and, you know, put an end to that. But they chose not to do that as well. Anyway, so now the bill goes back to the House and it passes today. So one of the things that they're talking about that I want to get into the weeds on is what exactly are they using as the poverty line? Because I think that's the real story here, right? They're all saying this is going to lift half of the children out of poverty. Is it? The poverty line that they're using, folks, is for a family of four is $28,000 a year. $28,000 a year. I'm going to tell you, like, without equivocation, that's absurd. This is poverty. $30,000 a year is poverty. $40,000 a year is poverty. To get out of poverty in the city of LA, you need to be making $65,000 to $70,000 a year if you are a family of four. So yes, by the metrics that they're using, they can make this claim. My point is this: why are we using these metrics in the first place? They're not justifiable. They don't pull anybody out of poverty. It's very frustrating. All right, so on that note, I want to show you some folks what we're talking about here specifically as the $28,000. So I have a site here that sort of breaks down the cost of living. Let's pull that up in Los Angeles so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so they're saying if you make $28,000 a year, you're out of poverty. I'm saying you're not. So this particular website breaks down the cost of meals if you eat out, McDonald's even, gallons of milk, loaves of bread, like just basic stuff. Nobody here is living high on the hog. So a family of four estimated monthly costs are $3,800, and that excludes rent. That does not include rent. $3,800 a month, family of four. That's what you need to be taking in to just get by, to have just a decent life, not even an extravagant life in the least. If we add rent to the mix in LA, that's another $24,000 a year, bare minimum. Because you four people, you're going to put them in a one-bedroom apartment. That's asinine. A one-bedroom apartment rent averages $2,258 in the city of LA. $2,258 for one bedroom. You cannot possibly have parents and two kids in a one-bedroom apartment. I mean, you could, and people are doing it now. They're living in cars, for fuck's sake. But that's what we're looking at. So my point is this: the metric that they're using, the $28,000 metric, is ludicrous, and I have not seen a single person bring that up. Nobody in the Congress brought it up in their speeches. I have not seen anybody in the media bring it up. They're all just touting this as the New Deal, but nobody's questioning the underlying fundamentals that are just absolutely broken when what we need, again, is structural change. All right, so let's get into what he's talking about here for the child welfare claim, right? So the claim is based on a child tax credit. So currently the child tax credit is $2,000 a year. So this bill is basically going to increase that to $3,000 per child, or $3,600 per child if the child is under 6 years of age. And it will further extend it to the age of 17. Currently, you're cut off at the age of 16. So these things are good. I'm not saying they're not good. They're going to help, but they are not going to help enough. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. This is only for 1 year. This will phase out in a year. It's not permanent. Maybe if these changes had been permanent, that'd be a much better deal, a much bigger deal, because it would be a step in the right direction. But 1 year of this isn't going to do the things that they're saying it is. And he's claiming that the rate of poverty would fall to 6.6% from 13.4%. But again, that's based on this metric of $28,000 as the baseline of poverty for a family of four. All right, that's just not going to do it. Here's the thing to keep in mind. The $28,000 might be an okay number if you live in parts of the Midwest, right? If you live outside of Indianapolis, perhaps. But that's not where the majority of the population lives, is it? The jobs are not there. People live in the city centers because that's where the jobs are. And this is also where it's really tough to make ends meet, even on a $15 minimum wage. So it's absolutely not good enough. All right, so I am very upset about this, obviously. I think the other thing that we need to look at is in comparison to other countries. So they're also bringing up, obviously, the $1,400. That was a 2K promise. They've settled on the 14. They're touting that as a big deal, too, but it's not. We're now looking at the moratorium ending on rents, and people owe $10,000, $12,000 in back rent. $1,400 is not going to handle that. And, it's a one-time payment. If this had been a UBI all along, then perhaps. And maybe they will consider doing a UBI going forward to try to save capitalism. I don't think that they will, though. But we're the only industrialized nation that has not received that, and I think that's an important part of the discussion as well. Every other country has been receiving 80% or higher of their wages from the government, which has allowed them to stay home and not worry about getting evicted, right? Or spreading COVID. And, why are we settling for this in the United States of America? We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. Yet we are here supporting a plutonomy, because that's what it is. When you have 80% of the new wealth going to the 1% year after year after year, That is what you're living under, a plutonomy. And this has been a vicious cycle of power and wealth. It's like the power's here, then they get more wealth because they enact legislation that allows them to extract more wealth. So then it goes back to the power wealth cycle again. So each round of the cycle, they retain more of our bot Congress, more of the rules, laws, and regulations that allow them to extract more wealth, and the working class continues to lose. And I don't know where this ends because it's untenable now. At some point, there's not going to be any expendable income left in the working class for folks to buy the widgets that the 1% produces. They need us to spend money. In order for this capitalism machine to keep going, we have to consume. It's based on consumption. And at some point, that's going to go, right? We're headed in that direction now. But I don't think it seems to worry them because A, they're greedy. I mean, that's just the obvious. But B, I think they've hoarded so much wealth, and they're hoarding wealth at the top, so much so that they don't even have to worry about it at this point. I mean, this is where we are.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.